Well, welcome. My name is Brent Iverson. I'm the Dean of the School of Undergraduate Studies, and welcome to the 12th University Lecture Series. And tonight, we have a real treat for you. But before we get there, I know that originally we thought that Bill Powers would be one of the speakers tonight. He can't be here for medical reasons, but what I thought we would do is we would help him recover the way that Longhorns help each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count to 3. And when I count to 3, I want all of you to raise the horns and say, "Hook 'em, Bill." Now, I want this to be loud. There's a lot of you here, and I want to know that. So I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Hook 'em, Bill. All right. What we're going to talk about tonight is how you are going to go from being the best students in the state of Texas, which you are, to truly successful. And one of the things that really successful people have in common is that they saw opportunities that others may have not seen, and they were confident, and they were bold, and they made big changes. And that's what I want you to be thinking about, because it's one thing to plan a career and plan for success. That usually doesn't go as planned. It's another to see something that others don't, go for it, have that confidence to get it done. And so tonight's first speaker is Bill Cunningham. Bill Cunningham has a remarkable story. He started as a faculty member here in the business school at age 25. By age 37, he was dean of the business school. By age 41, he was president of the University of Texas at Austin. He then became chancellor of the University of Texas system. So I'm going to let Bill tell his story. Thank you very much for coming, Bill Cunningham.
Thank you, Dean Iverson. What you did fail to tell the students is that I got out unindicted. It's a high standard if you're about to be indicted, I promise you. I would like to congratulate each and every one of you for being admitted to what we so modestly call the university. The University of Texas at Austin, on virtually any scale, is one of the finest universities in the nation, and you are now an integral part of it. I charge each of you to take advantage of all of its vast resources. These range from world-class programs in anthropology to zoology, to libraries and rare book collections that rival those at the Smithsonian, to a #1 ranked college football team that will play in the Rose Bowl for the national championship. This may not happen this year, but it will happen before you leave the 40 acres, and I promise you, you'll enjoy it. Dean Iverson gave me a difficult assignment. However, I learned many years ago to always do what the dean says. Dean Iverson asked me to provide you some of the factors which impacted my life. I will give you the top 10 that do not include the very positive impact that my parents had on my upbringing. First, there is always hope for the hopeless. I was a very poor high school student. My high school academic advisor, Mr. Schultz, suggested to my parents that I go into the oil business, but at a rather modest level. Specifically, he told them they should buy me a filling station. I was accepted to Michigan State University on scholastic probation. I received a letter from William Finney, Assistant Director of Admissions, informing me that my scores on the SAT exam qualified me for admission. He went on to say, "It is clear that you have more brain power than you are using. Why don't you start?" Not exactly a warm welcome to MSU. #2, hard work pays off. After my first quarter in college, I had a 2.5 grade point average. I had never done this well in high school. Some subjects are just meant to be complex: nuclear physics, rocket science, and brain surgery. However, most of the successful people I know are not necessarily the brightest people in society. They simply work harder than others. They understand the importance of time on task, feet on the street. An academic counselor at Michigan State told me 3 things I needed to do to be successful at MSU. Listen. These tips are timeless and they will help you. First, I needed to find a place to study where I was alone and felt comfortable. A place where I sat down and I was prepared to study. This meant the library for me, not my dorm room, which was in a constant state of chaos. Second, I should start out by studying 30 minutes and then take a short break and come back and study more. Third, I needed to study like my life depended on it, and it did. I learned to cram not just during exams, but all the time. I was overprepared. It worked. At the end of my first year, I had a 3-point grade point average. I know that's not much for you all, I understand that. And I graduated with highest honors and a 4-point grade point average for the last 2 years. While I was a late bloomer, most of you are early bloomers. You did well in high school. However, I want you to understand that you're now playing in the big leagues. Every student at UT Austin is smart. If you are a serious student, you will do well at the university. If you are not, I will not see you at the Rose Bowl. I never forgot the advice of our 26th president, Theodore Roosevelt. Do what you can with what you have where you are. Third, this may be the first time that many of you will make tough, important decisions that will impact you for many years. To illustrate, if you want to go to law school or medical school, freshman classes count just like a course you take in your senior year. Don't think you get a free ride, because you don't. After 1 quarter at MSU, I pledged Lambda Chi Alpha, my father's fraternity. The morning after the first party, I realized that fraternity life would be a lot of fun. And I mean a lot of fun. However, I had to decide where I was going to spend the next 3 years of my life, since it certainly was not going to be at Michigan State. I'm not against fraternities or sororities. They can and do perform important functions for some individuals at a big university. However, a fraternity was not for me. And since no sorority asked me to join, my Greek life was over. Later on, when I was president of UT Austin, I visited fraternities and sororities. The sorority houses always looked immaculate. No other comment. Fourth, do not drop out. My parents were concerned that I would drop out of college. My father solved this problem by getting me a summer job at Sears in downtown Detroit, changing tires, doing lubrications, and installing seat covers. At the end of the summer, I was offered an opportunity to go to radiator school or return to MSU. What made me worthy of consideration as a radiator expert at Sears was that I did not drink on the job, and I came to work every day. High standard. The truth is, my parents need not have worried. I was desperate to get out of the garage, get out of Sears, and return to college life. Fifth, people skills are critical to success. I understood early in life that my success was going to be tied to the success of other people at the university. As a result, I needed to find, attract, hire, and motivate outstanding people. My experience has proven to me that the more I could empower people, the better chance I had of helping them accomplish their objectives that I felt were important to the university. I do not understand why some of our nation's senior officials insist on demeaning and bullying others. Narcissism is a terrible disease that inevitably leads to high turnover, low morale, poor decisions in every organization that is unfortunate enough to have a narcissistic person at the helm. 6, be flexible. Plans are fine. In fact, they're important. However, most of you will change majors, careers, job locations, and personal relationships many times over the course of your lives. It is human nature to want a foothold on certainty, to know what lies ahead, to seek security and assurance that all will be well. But we all know that life comes with no guarantees, rebates, trade-ins, or cashbacks. When we were headed to Austin, my wife Isabella, my new bride of 4 days, was reading a description of Austin. It said Austin, I know you find this hard to believe, but it said Austin was a small, pleasant college town that distinguished itself by having lights on towers that gave the city an artificial moon glow at night. For a woman who was raised in a large, sophisticated city, São Paulo, Brazil, educated in Brazil, France, Italy, and the United States, had an MBA, PhD, and a law degree, and spoke 5 languages fluently, this description of Austin made it sound like a country Hamlet. It was almost more than Isabella could bear, and she cried the entire way from Houston to Austin. My point is, Isabella was flexible. She adapted quickly to Austin, where she became a distinguished faculty member and department chairman at the university. Flexibility wins a contest every time. 7th, a mentor will help you understand how to work the system, how to be successful. My first real mentor beyond my parents was Dr. William Cunningham. Chrissy was a superb teacher, an active researcher, a highly respected servant to Michigan State, and a very successful management consultant. Above all, he may have been the best people person I've ever known, except President Clinton. He told me, you never learn anything when your mouth is open. Listen to what experienced people have to say. Mentors played an important role in my life at MSU, and they were even more important to me as a young faculty member at Texas. 8th, never apologize for being the best. We don't want our commitment to excellence to become snobbish or arrogant, but neither do we want a sense of populism to become an excuse for mediocrity. Dr. Peter Flawn, the legendary president of the university, declared a war on mediocrity. UT Austin was an elite institution, and his goal was to make it even more elite. I was always very excited about having an opportunity to serve as president of the university. UT Austin is a world-class institution, and I was the CEO at 41. It was a great gig. I wanted UT to be the best. When I left my position as chancellor of the UT system, I joined the board of directors of Southwest Airlines. This is a great thrill for me. Boys love trains, planes, guns, all that kind of stuff. I loved being chancellor of the UT system because it was the best. I felt the same way about Southwest Airlines, which is today the 2nd largest airline in the world. Kind of impressive. Never apologize for being the best, and never settle for less than the best. 9, be compassionate. Not everyone is as fortunate as you are. I was fortunate to have 2 loving and supportive parents, to attend a first-class high school and college, have warm, supportive friends who did not lead me astray, and I did not make any poor decisions that followed me for an extended period, or at least that people know about. When I was 7 years old, we lived next to a family whose son was named Billy. Billy was 9 years old. Billy lived in an iron lung in the family living room. He could not run and play. He could not ride horses or swim or dream of becoming a playwright, a doctor, a businessman, or a university faculty member. I could never understand why I had been dealt such a good hand and he had such bad cards. The bottom line is, be kind to people who are less fortunate than you are. You will feel better about yourself and you will do the right thing for others. 10. Number 10. Be nimble, quick, and focused. When I became chancellor of the University of Texas, I was summoned by Lieutenant Governor Bullock, whose office. And in Texas, the lieutenant governor is the most powerful office. And he wanted to meet me. We didn't know each other. I was brand new, he was brand new. And he also brought Herb Richardson with him. Herb Richardson invited Herb. Herb was the chancellor, new chancellor of Texas A&M. We arrived at his office about 9:30 or 9:45, I expecting about a 30-minute meeting. And after about 10 minutes of somewhat decent communications, he launched into an attack on Herb and on Texas A&M. And basically his theme was, Texas A&M doesn't have the decency to name its smaller schools after A&M. They were different names. They didn't include A&M. And this went on for a couple of hours. And I kind of sat there, and at times I felt maybe I should get involved. Maybe I should pound on Herb. Maybe I should help Herb. But I decided I really didn't have a dog in the fight, so I just kind of stayed back a little bit to see what happened. As we got to lunch, Bullock said, "Would you boys like to have some lunch?" We didn't want any lunch. We wanted to get out of there as fast as we could go. But we, of course, said, "Oh, Governor, we'd love to have lunch." In comes the fried, refried, triple fried foods, along with a cardiologist. And we have lunch. And it's civil for a little while, and then he turns on Herb again. And then about an hour later, he says, speaking to me, what is your plan for South Texas? Why, South Texas, we had been sued. The state of Texas and the university had been sued because we had not created a university of the first class in South Texas. So he said, what is your plan for South Texas? And I looked him straight in the eye and I said, remember, this is nimble, quick, and focused. I said, Governor, and you always call him governor. Remember that, always call him governor. Whether governor or not, lieutenant governor, call him governor, never hurts. So I said, Governor, we have a detailed plan. Detailed plan. He said, great, I want to see it in the morning. With that, I got up, raced out of my office, picked up my cell phone, headed back to my office, and I knew what was the case. There was no plan. Nada, zippo, zero, nothing. So at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I called all the presidents of the UT system schools in the South, and I said, it is time. You said you wanted money. Now is the time. I want to see your proposal. So we stayed up, and I stayed there till 2 o'clock in the morning, and my staff stayed all night, and we wrote about a 7-page proposal called the South Texas Border Initiative. And the next morning, I came in, ripped it out of the machine, made a couple of small changes on it, raced over to Bullock's office. Herb, poor Herb was sitting there. Poor Herb, all of you, poor Herb. Herb was sitting there. We walked in, and Bullock says, well, let me see the plan. I said, yes, sir. I handed him the plan. He read it, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth page. And he said, this is typical of UT, just typical. It's detailed, focused, well-researched. This is a great plan. You guys really know how to do it. And, you know, for 4 hours work, I was a pretty happy guy. The stars were lined up, and we raised more than $1 billion for higher education. Now, I realized I said I would give you my top 10 factors that influenced my life. However, that was fake news. We hear a lot of fake news these days. I'm going to add one more lesson, one and one more only. 11. Now listen to this. Be willing to speak truth to power. When I was chancellor of the university, there was a man named Bernard Rappaport who was chairman of the Board of Regents. That's who the chancellor reports to. The Board of Regents and the chancellor and the chairman. And Bill Clinton and Hillary were in the office, and Hillary had developed a health plan. And it was somewhat like Obamacare, but not really totally, but it has had some of those same feelings. And Rappaport was very close to the Clintons. He had known them forever. And he was so excited, and he called me, and he was just almost foaming at the mouth. He was so excited. And I had to decide, do I speak truth to power? Because I knew that plan was a disaster for the medical schools, of which now I was in charge of all the medical schools, as well as the academic institution. So I passed the test. I said truth to power. I said, Bernard, this will be a disaster. And I explained to him why it was. And his response was, we need to go to Washington and we need to kill the bill. Now, he did that because he understood his fiduciary responsibility was to the university, not to his friends Bill and Hillary Clinton. I thought to myself, I've dodged a bullet. I'm not going to Washington. My life is set for at least another day. Life is going to be good. 1 week later, I found myself in Washington. Senator Kennedy had a lunch for us. Senator Rockefeller saw us. We saw 9 U.S. senators over 2 days. The Special House Energy Subcommittee had a hearing just for us so we could explain why this was a bad bill. At the end of the first day, I was exhausted. I wanted to go to the Capitol Grill, get a martini, have a steak, and relax. And Bernard says to me at 4:30 in the afternoon, do you have any tickets to the State of the Union speech? It's that night. It's like it's 7 o'clock that night. I said, Bernard, I don't have any tickets to the State of the Union speech. And I opened my coat and said, you know, maybe I can get you a ticket to a UT football game. But I don't have any tickets to the State of the Union speech. He says, with that, let's go see Tom Foley. Tom Foley, Speaker of the House. Speaker of the House. Works for me. So we race out of the Senate building, over to the Speaker's office, race upstairs, and Rappaport, who's about 15, 20 years older than I am at least, maybe more, says to this receptionist, he says, you are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Now, do I know that's true? I don't know that's true. But I know she's in the top 7 because I heard him say that 6 other times during the day. A fine example of representative government. Soon we're ushered into Tom Foley's office. We're sitting there with Foley. They obviously know each other. We're yucking it up. It's about 2 hours before the State of the Union speech. There's a history, apparently, where the president brings in a copy to the speaker before they give the speech. So after a few minutes, who shows up? Bill Clinton. We're now sitting around a table, yucking it up, having fun, telling stories, making jokes, having a lot of fun, and with the President of the United States, who's going to give the State of the Union speech in less than 2 hours. And his staff begins to get very nervous. Clinton's always late, always late. So his staff's getting nervous, and with that, he gets up, and he turns and says, why don't you all come over to the White House tomorrow for breakfast? I said, I'm available. Count me in. I don't know what these other guys are doing, but I'm going. So the next morning, we go to the White House, and we knock on the security. I think this is ridiculous. They're not going to let us in. We knock on the security guard, and I said, my name is Bill Cunningham, and we were invited to come over and have breakfast. And they said, well, yes, Dr. Cunningham, come on in, and we have Chief of Staff here waiting for you, and George Stephanopoulos, and they will take you. And we went downstairs, and we had a delightful breakfast put on by the White House mess, the Navy mess, and with that, the word came, the president wants to see you. So zip, up we go to the Oval Office, and we're now sitting there with the president. Have a half an hour with him. Now the question is, did I say truth to power? Very important. Did I say truth to power? Did I say, Mr. President, your wife's bill stinks? How many think I did? Raise your hand if you think I said that. I can't see anyway, so I can't give you a grade. Well, the answer is no, I didn't say that. That'd be absurd. You can't do that. I mean, you're sitting there in the president's Oval Office, you can't do that. Start off with your wife's bill stinks, that won't work. In conclusion, I urge you to maintain and support traditional values such as honesty, integrity, cooperation, and commitment to community. These are not just buzzwords, they are standards to live by. Nothing will modify the imperative that we treat others as we want to be treated. Only when guided by such unchanging principles can we find our way through the perils of a changing world. I would be less than honest if I told you I have always followed my own advice. I just gave you one example where I didn't. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I think I know I'm not. However, I'm very pleased to state that with the exception of a guided tour by the warden of the men's prison in Huntsville and one minor misunderstanding in Port Harcourt, Nigeria, involving my alleged, focus on alleged, relationship with the CIA, I have never been inside a correctional facility. Once again, welcome to university. I'm confident you will all do well. If I can ever be of help, please come see me. My office is in the Harry Ransom Center. Goodbye and good luck. Fun. Fun.
It's now my extreme pleasure to introduce Darren Roberts. Darren is a very proud Plan 2 graduate from the University of Texas at Austin. Okay. I expected a little more from that. Former student body president at the University of Texas at Austin. He is the founding director of the Center for Sports Leadership and Innovation at UT Austin. Now, what happened in between is quite a story. I'm going to let Darren tell you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dean Iverson and President Cunningham. Once a president, always a president, except if it's student body president, no one cares. And to the lone Plan 2 person out there, God bless you. Who has midterms this week? So do I. I'm just kidding. But I am studying for the bar exam. So we're in a very similar position. This is what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to give you about a 10-minute recap of my life. At the age of 7, I was going to be governor by 40. I turned 40 November 29th of this year, so obviously I took a wrong turn somewhere. But that was the plan. And I'm going to give you 7 of my lessons on pivoting, so 7 pivot points. So I'm a 5th generation East Texan. How many East Texans are here? Not nearly enough. I'm going to talk to admissions about this. Mount Pleasant, Texas. I get here in 1997. But before that, my dad took out a map of Panola County. It was taken in 1870. It was a census tract. And he showed me this inscription, 1870, Bill Roberts, 153 acres. So my dad is pointing to the map. Now, my dad is a Baptist minister, has been pastoring the same church for 42 years, and he sticks his finger in my chest and he says, "This is why you will never have any excuses." Okay, now I'm 7 at the time. I have no clue what this man's talking about. Just nodding my head. He said, "Well, come up with a goal." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "What are you going to do with your life?" I'm thinking to myself, come on, Dad, I'm 7 years old. All right? But my parents were very involved politically. I said, "I'm going to be governor by age 40. He said, "Okay." And so I come to the university in 1997. When I get here, there are 50,500 students. Mount Pleasant at the time had 12,291. So you mathematicians out there will know that that's about 4 times the size of my hometown. Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium on a Saturday at the time could fit around 8 Mount Pleasants. So when I get to the university, I'm lost. But I always, wherever I go, I tell people this: the 13 years of public school education that I received in Mount Pleasant prepared me to do well here. And so I'm going through, and I have a very linear, if A then B, if B then C sort of roadmap to getting to the governor's mansion by 40. So that meant that I needed to be student body president. So the night before the filing deadline, I get a call from someone. We'll call this person Hector. And Hector says, Darren, I would love for you to be my vice president. I said, well, Hector, I'm honored. Thank you so much. Let me think about this a little bit, and I'll give you a call tomorrow. I get another call. We'll call her Marissa, and Marissa calls and she says, Darren, I would love for you to be my vice president. So now I'm a bit offended, okay? I'm just a tad bit offended. I said, well, let me ask you a question. I'm thinking about running for student body president. She said, well, you don't want to do that. Well, well, you're doing it, so obviously there's not much wrong with it. She said, you know, you're from a small town, and so in the history of the university, most of the student body presidents, as you could probably imagine, come from Dallas and Houston, San Antonio, not Mount Pleasant. So I understand that. And then she says, you know, I don't know how to say this. Okay, I'm from East Texas. So when people say this, usually the next comment involves race. So I just finished it for her. I said, I'm black? She said, oh, it just sounds so bad when you say it. I said, I've been black for a long time now. Thoroughly enjoy it, by the way. I said, I am going to give the people of the University of Texas benefit of the doubt. So we campaigned for 2 weeks, everywhere from the Chi Omega House to the Judo Association, spoke to 250 organizations. And so I win, I'm student body president. Listen, I am the most puffed up man on campus. And I apply to Harvard Law School, and I don't get accepted, I don't get rejected. What's in the middle? The dreaded wait list, dun, dun, dun. So let me just paraphrase the letter from the Dean of Admissions. Dear Darren, we like you. Unfortunately, we like a lot more people more than you. Okay? In the highly unlikely event that all of those people tell us no, we may, in fact, reach back out to you. But if you have other options for law school, we suggest that you take them. With love, Joyce P. Curl, Dean of Admissions, Harvard Law School. I'm devastated. I'm in sackcloth and ashes for 3 days. My life is crumbling. And I call a mentor of mine, a man by the name of Lowell Leberman. And I said, listen, I had this plan to go to Harvard Law School. It didn't work out. He said, well, let me see if I can get you a job on Capitol Hill. And he gets me a job with a man by the name of Senator Joe Lieberman in May of 2001. I am there begrudgingly at first, and then I'm there through September 11th. So I go from working on education and human services bills to working on national security. I get an education that I could not have forecasted as a senior at the University of Texas, just because I had been waitlisted by Harvard Law School. So I go to the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. I keep applying to Harvard Law School. I am waitlisted 4 straight years. So now my mom's getting involved, okay? You don't know Gwen Roberts. Gwen Roberts, elementary school principal for 35 years. She said, listen, baby, you're not getting any younger. I said, I understand this, Mom. She said, I don't know how to say this, but I just don't think they want you. So I can always count on you to lift my spirits, Mother. I appreciate it. She said, just go to law school somewhere else. It'll be okay. So I'm going to give it one more try. And so I get a call from the Dean of Admissions in May of 2004, and she says, hey, listen, if I offer a seat to you in the class of 2007, will you take it? I say, yes, ma'am. And so into Harvard Law School I walk, and I am surrounded by former Navy SEALs, Green Berets, heart surgeons, a former Miss America. And I was able to perform well there because of the education that I got at the University of Texas. And so I'm going through law school, and I'm going to practice at a firm, and then I'm going to run for Congress back in my home district, and then I'm going to make my way to the governor's mansion. And my high school buddy, a guy that I played football with, called me and said, hey, I'm going to go work a football camp in South Carolina. Would you come with me to the camp? I said, sure, I'll go. So I get to the camp, and we're sitting in the back, and the head coach comes out, and he says, listen, one of the volunteer coaches didn't show up. I need someone to fill in for him. So I'm looking around. It's 2006, so I have my BlackBerry, so I'm like, raise my hand. And my buddy, who's an actual coach, is like, put your hand down. Put your hand down. Coach, where are you from? I said, Mount Pleasant High School. Mount Pleasant High School. What's your name? Coach Roberts. Coach Roberts. Coach Roberts, you have group 6. Yes, sir. I had no clue what this man was talking about. Okay? Group 6 consisted of 60 sixth graders, none of whom had any athletic talent whatsoever. Their mothers had taken them to academy, emptied the checkbook. They had headbands, knee bands, waistbands, ankle bands. They were protecting the house. They were just doing it. They could not backpedal for 5 yards. Fortunately for them, they had a coach who could not coach. So we were quite the sight to see. We just walked around the campus for 3 straight days. It was the best 72 hours of my life. And this is what I noticed. For the first time in my life, I did not have to set my alarm clock to wake up. And a part of my job was bet check duty, so I had to check these kids in. And I'm eavesdropping on a conversation, and it is the very typical conversation that happens with this black kid and this white kid. One's from the right side of the tracks, one's from the wrong side of the tracks, right? Different SES. Their parents shop at different types of grocery stores. The conversations they're having at midnight, not about their differences. They're talking about how many touchdowns they're going to score in the upcoming season. They're talking about where they want to go to college. And that's when it hit me that my entire view of public service, that it had to be this title and position, was pointless. My new purpose was to become a football coach. And so I call Gwen Roberts, my mom, okay? Here's the conversation. Mom, I want to be a football coach. Oh, honey, that is wonderful. Do you think your law firm will let you sort of do this as a pro bono project? No, Mom. I want to be a full-time coach. Oh. Let me put your dad on the phone. Enter Reverend Kurt Roberts. Hey, son, how's it going? It's going well. Hey, Dad, listen, I want to be a football coach. Okay. You mean like a Pop Warner team? I said, no, like a real coach. He said, listen, you hang the phone up and then call me back, okay? Hang the phone, call back. I said, Dad, I want to be a coach. He said, son, do you know how much debt you're in? Okay, so who's in some form of a math class right now? Some form, calculus, theory, something. Okay, here are the numbers. 5 years at Harvard, $50K per year. Yeah, well, it's my debt. No, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah. The oohs and the ahs. What are you talking about pre-interest? How much? Yeah, $250K. Look at admissions, doing a great job at admissions. $250K, $250,000 pre-interest. He said, my dad said, listen, remember the deal now. We would pay for undergrad, but you had to pay for grad and law school. And so I paused. I said, well, Dad, I've been thinking about this. You know, I got a full academic ride to go to the University of Texas. By my accounting, you and Mom owe me around $68,429.32. Pre-interest, of course. So my dad, being the Baptist minister that he is, he says, well, son, let's pray. Ask me if I've seen the check. No, I've still not seen the check. So I write a letter to every team in the NFL. How many are there? 32 teams. I get 31 rejections. Bill Belichick says no. John Fox says no. Herm Edwards with the Kansas City Chiefs says yes. And he gets on the phone and he says, listen, may I speak to Darren Roberts? Yes, this is he. Hey, son, what's wrong with you? I said, well, nothing that's been documented, okay? He said, look, take out a pen and paper. Here's the offer that I'm giving to you. You're going to be a training camp intern. Yes, sir. No pay. Okay. No benefits. So now I'm like, why do I need the pen and the paper? Mine like a steel trap. 18-hour days, okay? Had a split second. He said, the dates will start at July 25th, and you need to be here the first day. Well, that date was familiar to me because it overlapped with the Texas bar exam that I had already signed up for. So what's the right answer? The bar. Naysayers. That's going to be one of my points. I'm going to make it up here in a minute. I said, I'm in. Hang up the phone, drive my 2002 Tahoe, which I still drive because I'm cheap, from Cambridge, Massachusetts to Kansas City, Missouri. Now, I did graduate from law school. I get there, and I'm the grunt. So listen, if the offensive lineman needed 20 barbecue sandwiches, I was the guy. All right? If the defensive lineman needed cases of chewing tobacco, I was their guy. I slept at Arrowhead Stadium for 6 months because I wanted to be the first face that Herm Edwards saw when he walked in. At the end of the season, we went 4-12. Is this a good record? No. And there's something in the NFL called Black Monday. Not to be confused with Black Friday. We get great deals on Amazon. No. Black Monday, people get fired. And so Herm fires 4 coaches. He calls me into his office, and I'm walking into his office thinking, well, technically, I can't get fired. Okay? I mean, I haven't signed a piece of paperwork, haven't been paid a dime. And I sit down, and Coach says, Darren, we really appreciate all of your contributions. Listen, all the management literature says before you fire people, give them a compliment. Okay? So I was like, He said, today was a tough day, and he said, but listen, here's your first NFL coaching contract. He slides a piece of paper, 8 pages across the desk. I flip to page 8. I take out my Pilot V5 Precise pen, and I scribble my name. Ask me, did I read a single word of that contract? No. There are rare moments in your life where you just have to make a move. Look, I took contract law from the man who literally wrote the book on contract law. I could feel him shivering somewhere out there in the atmosphere. Like one of his students didn't read a single page of an 8-page contract. So that's how it began. I spent 2 years in Kansas City, 2 years with the Detroit Lions, 2 years with the West Virginia Mountaineers, 1 year with America's team, the Cleveland Browns. And we were all fired, and this is how life works. We're fired one day. I go home, and I'm scrambling eggs, and my oldest son walks in, and he's looking at me because he's surprised I'm home. And he said, you eat breakfast? And he's 3 at the time. So I did what any father would do. I just ignored the kid. Just got fired, all right? He comes back. He says, hey, you eat breakfast. So I turned to my wife, and I said, what's wrong with this kid? I'm a public school kid. You convinced me to put him in private school. I want a refund. My wife, daughter of a rancher from Kansas, she said, hey, when was the last time you had breakfast with Dylan? So even as a full-time coach, I was getting to the office at 4:15, on a good night, getting home at 11. So I decided that the irony of me spending more time with other people's sons than my own, that caused me to change and come back to the University of Texas and teach courses. I teach a UGS course called Game Plan for Winning at Life. We got any G-Wallers here? Got a few. They think they're getting extra credit, but they're not. And run the Center for Sports Leadership and Innovation. I have seven pivot points. And the first one is I want you to turn your circle into a triangle. Turn your circle into a triangle. Listen, we are so obsessed with how many followers you have on Twitter, right? How many shares and retweets and likes and hearts that you get. As you navigate this world, when you start to make transitions between very difficult points in your life, don't think big. You need a core group of people. And President Cunningham mentioned this. You need a mentor, and this is what you need out of a mentor, right? Someone who will be brutally honest with you at every juncture of your life. I had that person, right? Lowell Leberman was my mentor. He would tell me when I was walking down a path which would lead to a bad end. Right? But don't think about the quantity of the friends and the contacts that you have on LinkedIn. Reduce that circle to a triangle. Get a few people around you who can serve as your personal board of advisors. Those people will help you navigate the tough transitions. Number 2, embrace your inner grunt. All right? Embrace your inner grunt. Listen, when I went to the Kansas City Chiefs, I had 2 degrees from Harvard. I was a Plan 2 graduate from Texas. And my first job was making copies. And it took me 2 months to get that job. So at first they wouldn't talk to me because they thought I was kind of this disgruntled wannabe lawyer who was just hanging around. But I had to hang out in the copy machine and room and do tasks that others wouldn't do. So when you go to your first jobs, the startups and the nonprofits and the churches and the private corporations, when you go there, even though you are skilled and talented and can do a lot, and more than some of their full-time employees can do, show a willingness to still tackle the grunt responsibilities. It will endear you to the people in the organization. So embrace your inner grunt. Number 3, I want you to burn the box. People say, think outside the box. I want you to burn the box altogether. This is what's happened. When I get freshmen who come into my UGS course, I can still hear the choppers from the helicopter parents in the distance. I watch you folks. You're FaceTiming your parents in between classes. You've been sent here for several reasons. So I've had students sit and cry to me that they don't want to be an engineer. They want to be a journalist, but mom and dad sent them here to become an engineer. At some point, you have to be willing not just to think outside of the box, but burn it all together. And this is the beauty of a place like the University of Texas. Whatever your interest is, your passion is, your purpose is of the week, right? You can chase it. View your undergraduate years not as a time where you find your purpose. This is the Chinese buffet time of your life. You're going to pay $7.99. You're going to go up. You're going to get a little mugu gai pan, a couple of egg rolls, some General Tso's chicken, come back and have a meal. You don't like the mugu gai pan, but the General Tso's chicken is good, so you'll go back and get some more. For the next 10 years, be a taste tester. Don't think you have to leave the 40 acres with your purpose. Be willing to try new things, to go down dead ends, to end up in cul-de-sacs. So burn the box. Number 4, create your own energy. Right? Create your own energy. You're going to need this to get from point A to B. Find some way to sweat each and every day. If it's a 10-minute, now listen, I watch some of you go into Gregory, and you'll go in and you'll be all, we're Lululemoned up and we're ready to go. You go in, walk in at 5, and you're out at 5:15. I was like, whoa, that was a quick workout. That's okay. Find some way to sweat. All the research shows the people who have a healthy workout regimen, and it's regular. Maybe you run. Maybe you go in and lift. Don't make it too complicated. But find some outlet to relieve all the pressure that you have from midterms. All right? So create your own energy. And don't outsource that to anyone else. Here's what the world needs more of, and this is what you will become at the University of Texas. Instead of thinking of yourself as a thermometer, be the thermostat. So be the person that sets the temperature, right? Not the person who walks into the room and who waits and kind of to gauge how other people are feeling. Create your own energy. Be the person who creates that energy and doesn't react to others. So be the thermostat, not the thermometer. Point 5, don't turn your journey into a race. It's not a race. There's something I'm going to give you a phrase here. It's called insta-envy. Put a hashtag on that, insta-envy. We look at Instagram. I was at dinner with my wife a few months ago, and I'm watching these two people have a meal. This guy took a picture of his cheesecake 14 times. Okay, so at one point, he gets down on the floor and it's eye level to the cheesecake. Snap. Finds the right filter. Boom, upload. Now, here's the problem. You're scrolling through Instagram and you would think that that guy's having a great life, right? So all we're seeing is everyone's filtered best shots. What you don't see is take number 2, take number 9. So don't let what you see on social media think that everyone else has it figured out. Trust me, not only your fellow students, but we as adults, we're still trying to figure it out. I have 5 kids under the age of 8. Yes. Yes. Oh, thank you. Yeah. That's a weird clap. Yeah. Listen, I'm only half of the equation, so I'm going to pass my claps along to my wife. So look, just the fact that I'm alive right now is a big deal. I barely got out of a parent-teacher meeting today, okay? But don't look around at what you see on social media and think that this is reality. This will hurt you as you try to transition from step A to B and go from G to C, because it doesn't work that way. Like Steve Jobs said to the folks at Stanford in the commencement address, you can only connect the dots going backwards. So don't look at everyone's best photo and think that their life is the one that you want to live. Final 2 points. Go through what you go through. Add to your rejection resume. Put yourself in harm's way. Give yourself a chance to be told no. Before you apply for the internship that you shouldn't have, before you apply for the job that you shouldn't have, the answer by default is already no. So give yourself a chance to be rejected, and all you're doing is building more and more data to be able to make better decisions. Final point. Take a trip to your funeral. Now, this sounds bad. Last thing I want to say is this. David Brooks wrote a great article in the New York Times talking about the difference between resume traits and eulogy traits. So often in life, we're going through trying to add to our resume collection. But what we should be doing is adding to our eulogy traits. I want you to visualize your own funeral. This is the last assignment in my UGS class. My students have to write their own eulogy. Think about what you want to be remembered for. I guarantee you, you won't want someone saying that you finished number 1 in sales in 2023 and got a bonus. That's not what makes it into your eulogy. What makes it into your eulogy is the way that you made other people feel. So think about those eulogy traits. Hook 'em. God bless you. I wish you well. Thank you for having me.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to ask a few questions that came from you. And so I'm going to start off with you, Bill. When you stepped on campus as a 25-year-old, did you ever expect to be president someday?
No. Now, the real truth of the matter is, I did try to do, and this sounds corny, I understand that, but I tried to do everything that I could do the best that I could do it. And I figured out early on that was teaching, because that's how you were evaluated quickly. And then a little bit longer, research, you had to do that. And service, you had to do that. And things just kind of went along. And the one thing I will say is, one thing that really changed my trajectory and got me focused on administration was the dean was trying to hire an associate dean, and no one would work for him. Okay? But I was so naive, I would. And it was a lot of fun, and we got along very well. So it was, I never had a plan. I did try to do the best I could do every day, but I didn't have a plan.
Okay, Darren, where would you be right now if you didn't take the offer to coach those kids?
Oh, wow. I'd probably be governor of Texas.
Wow.
I think yeah. Listen, I think that this place is so special. I always point back to my 4 years here on the 40 acres. My goal was to become governor, and I feel like my training here prepared me to achieve that goal. And it was only by happenstance that I found out that my purpose was something other than becoming governor. But had I not gone into coaching, then I think I would have been well on my way. Thanks to the university.
Okay, Bill, have you had a turning point since leaving the presidency at UT Austin?
Well, yes. I mean, I became chancellor of the University of Texas System. That was a turning point. And that was interesting because there's normally a lot of candidates for that, and I turned out to be the only candidate. So your chances of getting selected are a lot better when you're the only candidate. I learned that early on. And I enjoyed, I will say this, I think I did a pretty good job as president of the university, and it's a big railroad, and there's a lot of pieces. And just to keep it moving and keep it from falling apart is not all bad. But I think I was a better chancellor than I was a president, and that's because I enjoyed the political side of the world. And as chancellor, you spent a lot more time dealing with governors, lieutenant governors, all that kind of people, than you did the politicians on campus. And they're really tough, the ones on campus.
Yes. So I hear.
Okay, Darren, are you still in touch with Herm Edwards?
Yes, so Herm Edwards was out of coaching for a while. He is now the head coach at Arizona State. Just took that job earlier this summer. And we had a few conversations around that transition for him because he had been out for about 10 years. And he's still a mentor of mine. I still remember the example that he set and the energy that he brought to coaching. I try to emulate some parts of that when I'm teaching in the classroom. So I'm fortunate to have him as a template to use as a teacher.
So this is for both of you. Is there an opportunity that you saw in front of you that you did not take advantage of, that you wish you did?
If the pregnant pauses, I guess I get to go first. Yes. I don't think so. Not really, because I was so excited about what UT was doing, and I was so happy to be part of it, and it was fun. I never had a job. I tell people, I never worked. I never had a job. It all worked out well. And so, no, I really wouldn't. There's always whys in the past that you could have gone this way, could have gone that way, and they may have been better, who knows. But I don't look back with any regrets. And I've enjoyed I've transitioned. I now teach in your program, which I'm happy to do. I teach in a law school, which I'm happy to do. I serve on a bunch of corporate boards, which I enjoy a lot. I've served on 25 corporate boards. That's fun for me. So I've had different lives at the university, and that's made it fun for me.
So I forgot to mention this. I brought 3 of my books. If I am Coach DKR on Instagram, okay, like Daryl K. Royal. If you send a message to me, then I'll send a message back, and I'll pick 3 people to give a book to. I regret having not studied abroad as an undergrad. That's one thing that I think if I were to hit the rewind button, I really wish I had gone abroad. The second thing is I had a chance to coach for the Green Bay Packers, and I said yes, and then I said no. Had I kept my word, I would be wearing a Super Bowl ring now, but that's okay. I don't regret it. I did it for the right reasons, but I'm sort of like President Cunningham. I think sometimes that we deliberate too much in real time. There are very few choices that are irrevocable. And so if you end up in a place where you don't want to be, you'll just turn around and take another choice, but everything works out. Unless you end up in prison, and then it's a different story.
Well, one of the real joys of my career is being able to be on stage with the both of you. Let's give them a big round of applause.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good man.
You heard more of the best advice in the world than I could imagine could be packed into an hour. So I hope you have time to process all of that this evening. Thank you very much for coming. They will be around for a little while to answer questions if you want to come up and see them. But let's give them both a round of applause one more time.
Thank you very much.